Hello and welcome to this UIA webinar. My name is Nelly Danco Herrera and I am a Finance Officer of the Urban Innovative Actions Permanent Secretariat. Today we will explore two important horizontal work packages such as the project management and communication as part of our support for applicants to our call for proposals. This webinar is part of a series of webinars that we are hosting and recording during the month of January and February in order to help applicants. We will pre-record our webinars and then hold questions and answer session to support those interested applicants that may have specific questions for the Permanent Secretariat. This is the last webinar of a series of webinars we had on the project partnership, intervention logic, work plan, budget, and eligibility of cost. The information provided in these webinars are a complement to the applicant seminars that the UIA is hosting during the months of January and February in order to give applicants further information in all the procedures and steps to put together an application form. So today's webinar focuses on planning your project management and drafting your communication and dissemination strategy. Let's start by listing the different principles of project management. Project management is about making sure that all your project partners and stakeholders agree when defining objectives and results. It's also about planning activities and there is this principle of organizing resources, leading and motivating people that you will work with to deliver your project solution. It's also about the principle of controlling resources allocated to the project, setting up management procedures with the sole aim to achieve specific goals at agreed quality within a specific time frame. In order to make sure your project is completed on time and budget and achieving the expected results with a good quality, remember that planning is paramount. Consider that different project management tools. Think on the project needed skills before building your project management team. Consider the risk your project may face. Review, reflect, and report on your project success and shortcomings so your team learns from the experience and communicate constantly. And as a project manager, always plan during the different stages. During the project design, while building your project intervention logic, work plan, and when finalizing this and submitting the application form. Then you will be required to plan during the execution phase when preparing all what is needed to conclude the project contracting, and then during the implementation of the project activities, for example, the identification of any request for change. Then you will be required to plan the monitoring and controlling of your project progress and performance, and also plan the archiving of evidences or audit trail of your project expenses. You will need to plan the closure of your project as well. Then, why is it important to focus on the project management? It is important that the projects ensure as well the role of the main urban authority as the leader or responsible of the project management and financial management. The urban authority bears the entire financial and juridical responsibility vis-à-vis the entrusted entity of the initiative through the signature of an important document called subsidy contract. The activities to be developed under the work package 2 of our application form aim to as well ensure a sound management and coordination of the project concerning both the overall project management and all the aspects linked to the financial management. The work package 2 also aims to organize the work between project partners involved by building a strong collaborative relationship formalized in an important document called partnership agreement. The organization of the partners' responsibilities should result in the successful implementation of the project as well as in the production and submission of different administrative documents such as the annual progress report and the financial claims for the project expenditure. But how to build your project management work package 2? Urban authorities are expected to group under this work package activities related to the strategic and operational management. More specifically, they are requested to describe management and governance structures, responsibilities and procedures for the day-to-day management and coordination mechanisms with a wider group of stakeholders, reporting, monitoring, and evaluation procedures. Note that for our initiative, A project has an implementation phase of 3 years, and therefore we expect 3 annual progress reports, while for the financial claims we just expect 2, as we work on the basis of advance payments and RDF reimbursement of cost. For more details, we invite you to see the section 1.7 of the guidance. While for monitoring and evaluation procedures, this will depend on the nature of the project. Some projects in the past calls dedicated a specific work package for monitoring and evaluation, while others prefer to include a specific activity dedicated to this purpose under each implementation work package. And in the work package 2, what they did was to describe how this was going to be ensured and managed. Risk and quality management, here is important to notice the difference with the section G of the application form. In this work package 2, projects are invited to describe how this risk and quality management will be managed and ensured, while in the section G of the application form, projects will just list the potential risks and describe the mitigation measures. For capitalization activities, these are dedicated to capture the knowledge produced by the project and draw lessons on an ongoing basis. This includes the involvement of the UIA experts during the project implementation. For the capitalization activities, we will also request the project partnership to participate in activities of the Urban Development Network, UDN, as well as participation in other national or international conferences to share the knowledge generated by the project and the main lessons learned on an ongoing basis. Remember that costs for auditors or first-level controllers and the UIA experts should not be included in the project budget, as these are paid directly by the initiative. The project should present appropriate and consistent management structures with the project size and needs. The project management structure should support the strategic, operational, and the day-to-day management and technical coordination of the project. Some examples of these structures presented by projects can be steering group, a steering committee integrated by project partners, a central coordination and consultation body where we will have the integration of a main urban authority and the work package leaders or project partners or outside experts, a technical committee and advisory board with the involvement of the wider group of stakeholders, a stakeholder platform, a project management team, etc. While for the management procedures, the proposal should clearly describe organizational arrangements. For this, you need to describe who will be in charge of the project management, how much personnel and time will be devoted to this task in conjunction with the budget description. Responsibilities to implement the project section, the project's action plan is as well requested to be described. For example, the description of roles of the different project partners in the decision-making process should be provided. Then a potential model of project governance. Then management procedures should be clear, transparent, and efficient and effective. Evidence of coordination mechanisms, details like regarding the internal management tools, frequency of meetings, on how the communication within the partnership will be done, description of the involvement of the wider group of stakeholders are also foreseen in this, are also to be foreseen in this work package. Some examples of management procedures can be reporting, monitoring, evaluation, decision-making process, risk and quality management, and capitalization activities. And this slide lists some of the activities and deliverables planned by previous call projects. You are invited to use this as a source of inspiration to develop further in your application form proposal. Well, some tip for applicants would be that the proposal should clearly describe who will be in charge of the project management. It is as well expected that the project management is carried out by the main urban authority, by the staff members of the main urban authority. However, the delegation to another partner or outsourcing the project management is possible on the basis of an appropriate justification and provided that the main urban authority retains the full and day-to-day control of the project. The proposal should clearly describe how this control is guaranteed. For example, if we have a project where there is an important investment in charge of a delivery partner other than the main urban authority, by consequence, this delivery partner will receive a big share of the project budget, let's say 60% of the project in total. What we would like to see in the application form is how the main urban authority will keep the control in this case. Think about the different type of risk of your project that your project may be exposed to and come up with mitigation measures and an action plan to avoid them if possible. And then project management is a constant learning procedure of good practices and lessons learned to adjust and implement any change if needed. Before building your project management team, consider the competences and expertise needed by the project. For example, some knowledge and experience working with the structural funds, ERDF, can be valued when hiring a financial manager of your project. Proper planning prevents poor project performance. Then last piece of advice would be a consistent information flow is important so that all the partners are informed on what is happening. With this, I hand over to the second half of the webinar dedicated to communication strategy. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hélène Vergès, and I am the Communication Officer of the UIA initiative. Following Nelida's presentation on the project management, I will give you a few tips on how to define your communication strategy and how to fill in the work package number 3 of the application form. You are preparing your application for the third call for proposals of the UIA initiative because you think that your proposal can be one of the most innovative across Europe. You are preparing a proposal with a very innovative content and very innovative methodologies and processes. Well, this will have to be the same when you prepare your communication work package. You will have to innovate and to think out of the box in order to prepare this work package. Indeed, communicating on a very innovative projects towards your citizens is not always easy, and it can even be challenging, especially if you want to implement something completely new or you want people to change their behavior in order to adopt this new project. Engaging the right stakeholders from the start, being able to reach them, will be a key element in your project success. It will trigger ownership and it will make them accept your project. So communication should be seen as a strategic tool to implement your project. At the UIA, we have identified 2 levels of communication. The first one is the communication at the European level. If you are selected to be a UIA project, you will benefit from ERDF funds, and as such, you will have to comply with EU requirements regarding visibility. We will provide you with a communication pack and with templates to help you comply with these requirements. The second level of communication is the communication at your local level. This is what we want to hear about in the work package 3 of the application form. When you start filling in the work package 3 of your application form, the first thing you will have to do is to design a proper communication strategy. This means that you will have to define a communication objective. What do you want to achieve? You will have to identify the relevant target groups, with whom do you want to work, and you will have to plan your communication activities. When you define your communication objective, you have to keep in mind that communication is not a standalone in the application form. Communication will help you reach your project objective, and as such, you will have to demonstrate us that your communication objective and your project objective are strongly interrelated. To give you an example, in the second call for proposals, we have a project whose objective is to test autonomous buses in a certain part of the city. So of course, by doing this, they will have to overcome some psychological barriers of the citizens who could be afraid of driverless cars. And they will also need to have some test users to test this pilot. So their communication objective is completely focused around this project objective. They want to raise awareness on these autonomous buses in order to overcome the fears of the citizens, and they want to recruit over 1,000 test users for their pilots. So their communication activities and objective are completely focused and are completely supporting their project objective. In this example, you see a very important element, which is the participatory approach. Keep in mind that it's very important to engage your stakeholders from the start and to make them participate in the process. A last tip from my side: when you define your project objective, keep in mind that it should be SMART. You can see it on the screen. It means that it should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. You can see an example on the slide, which is taken from a first call project. And you see here that it's very clear. Their communication objective is to make sure that 50 potential local energy districts, so it's measurable and it's specific, can understand the system that they want to implement and can be convinced that it's the right thing to do. And they have a deadline, which is 2019. Once you have identified your communication objective and you know what you want to achieve, you will have to identify your target groups. Who do you want to reach? Keep in mind here that the target groups of your communication work package can be the same as your project target groups. It can also be different. It will depend on your project and on your objective. What we would advise here would be to make a list of all the stakeholders that you're thinking of, and that could be a target group, and to try and see their level of influence and their level of interest in your topic. Indeed, it will not be the same, for instance, to deal with an elected member who has a lot of influence on your topic, but who's not so much interested. Then in this case, you will have to raise their interest on the topic, to raise their understanding of the topic. And to deal with someone who has a lot of influence on the topic and who's also highly interested, then in this case, you can manage this group of stakeholders much more closely. We have a project from the first call for proposals, who is a very good example. They have defined very specific target group. And the more specific your target group is, the more efficient it will be for your project. In the case of this first call project, they have a project about co-housing between young refugees and voluntary bodies. So they have identified 3 types of stakeholders group. The first group is the end users, young refugees who are unaccompanied refugees, and young people between 20 and 30 years old who live in the city of Antwerp. The second group is the stakeholders who are involved in the decision-making process. So here they have identified stakeholders in the field of housing, education, inclusion, for instance. And the third group they have identified is the group of stakeholders who are involved on the ground in the implementation process. For instance, an association providing psychological support to young refugees. So as you see, the more precise the target group, the more efficient it will be for your project. Then, once you have identified the target groups, think of a way to engage them. You will have to develop targeted messages for each of them and targeted tools. Now that you're ready, you have your communication objective, you have your target groups, you know how to reach them, then you will have to describe your communication work plan and your communication activities. If you have already started to fill in the application form, you may have noticed that activities in the work package 3 are very standardized. We have startup activities, media relations, publications, events, etc. You can see on the screen it is possible to delete an activity if you think it's not relevant for you. It is also possible to add an activity which is not in the list. So it's standardized, but it's still very flexible. You will have to provide us with the list of activities that you want to implement. For each activity, you have to give us the detail of the deliverables. For instance, if your activity is to do public events, in the deliverable, you can describe each type of events that you want to do with a proper date and with a description of the objective of this event. So to conclude, the type of activities that you will be able to do, we are flexible, but 2 of them are compulsory. The startup activity, which is to launch your project, and the final dissemination activities, which is to disseminate about the results of your project and maybe to scale it up, are compulsory. The other activities, events, publications, media relation, digital activities, well, they are depending on your project and on what you want to achieve and on your target groups. So just keep what's relevant for you and don't hesitate to be innovative with additional proposals, keeping in mind that it should have value for money. And when you prepare your communication work plan, keep in mind to describe very clearly what you want to do, plan your activities with proper dates, quantify them, and don't forget to allocate sufficient budget to communication. We hope this presentation was helpful for you in order to prepare your application form. We will hold a live Q&A session very shortly, so if you still have questions, you will be able to ask them live to us. You can already register on this webpage. Otherwise, please don't hesitate to send us an email at info@uiainitiative.eu. And we wish you all the best in your application process.